pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene to executive session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee in which the government, the body of its jurisdiction, or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, Brand 1, Brand C, to consider compensation and evaluations of support staff and certified staff, staffing for 2023-24, the renewal or non-renewal of teacher contracts, and consideration of preliminary notice of non-renewal, layoff, and staff discipline. We begin with a presentation tonight on technology education.
Mr. Brian Paul is our tech ed teacher, and he's got the presentation ready.
Okay, so I'm Brian Paul. I know most of you, some people I don't. I'm the tech ed teacher here. So I'll start out with elementary STEM. So this is the first year where we really kind of tackled this thing down in the tech ed lab. So the goal was to provide several opportunities for grades 1 through 5 to experience the Fab Lab by creating and making small projects. So I put a list of different projects up there that we did make this year. So we made cookie cutters, holiday ornaments, Arbor Day stickers, wax museum signs, rulers, bookmarks, and more to come. So we got a couple pictures here. So down here, these are some of the stickers that the fourth graders actually created. So they came up with those designs, printed them all out. They actually go present to the other younger grades, and they give each kid a sticker when they're done. So that was pretty cool. Up here, we got a bunch of holiday ornaments. So we made some Halloween stuff, some Christmas stuff, cookie cutters, a bunch of red and black bookmarks down there. All right, then we get into 8th grade tech. So 8th grade tech is required for all kids. We introduced the students to several areas of tech ed through hands-on projects. So they learn all the wood shop machine safety. So they use bandsaws, scroll saws, sanders, drill press, things like that. We saved the table saw, joiners, and planers for high school when they're a little bit bigger and can handle that. We'll go through measurement. They learn some computer design and art software, and then they do some hands-on problem solving. So we got some pictures of them. So over here, they're making their CO2 cars. So that's a woodshop project. They really love painting them, so you see they spent a lot of time painting their different cars. The middle picture there, we actually did a project on the CNC plasma table. So they drew up little metal signs, cut them out, painted them. Actually gave them a quick little 5-minute lesson with welding where they got to hold the torch and they kind of held their hand and then tacked it together. And then on the far picture there, they're doing like some paper roller coasters with marbles. So problem solving with that. Intro to drafting. So students introduce students to several areas of computer design and drafting. So we do start out with hand drafting. I know it's the computer world, but you do learn a lot of good skills with hand drafting. It also helps them appreciate the computers a little bit more once you get there. They learn a lot of blueprint reading, so they're learning about dimensions, different line types, scaling things up and down, tolerances, things like that. We go pretty deep into AutoCAD for 2D drawings. So I put a couple examples here. This is a 2D drawing that they created. There's another one down there. We do Inventor for 3D modeling, assemblies, and paper documentation. So up here is the pipe fitting exercise I gave them. That's a full assembly. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts I think to that. They draw all those pieces. They build them all in the program, and then they can print out all the paperwork. This is a little flashlight that they created. So there's actually multiple parts, little LED bulbs, a switch, battery, and then those we actually built. So we 3D printed them out, and then we learned a little bit about soldering, and then soldered the little LEDs and resistors and put those things together. Intro to woods.
These are both high school classes?
These are all high school.
You're all high school?
So Intro to Woods is a high school class. Basically introduce students to woodshop tools and procedures. So they learn more about measurement. They also learn a lot about hand tools. So this project up here, we actually started out as a hand tool project. They all thought I was crazy. But I had them use a crosscut saw and use a rip saw just to kind of get out there and do something. It's more about, like I said, just getting them out there, getting their hands dirty. And then we slowly brought in like power tools, the miter saw, the table saw, little air nailer and things like that. So each made a little home sign. And then as a group, we go through the process of creating that table there. So with that, they do a full project plan sheet. So they learn what it takes to plan a project. They look at the blueprints. They're sizing out all the rough size boards. They're calculating material costs and all that stuff. And then we just slowly build and build every week, adding more steps to that project. This was kind of a fun little project. He just wanted something to do after he shot his big buck here. So he built this cow head deer mount thing and put his little antlers in there. Told me that picture couldn't ever go anywhere, so that's up there. How to make almost anything class. So this is really like a high-tech class. So like the drafting stuff that we saw a little bit ago, we pretty much use all of those drafting tools on the computer and then bring them to machines, and the machines create different parts for us. So down here, we created little LED signs. So we use a laser engraver to etch in all those things. It cuts the plastic out. The wooden base is a CNC router project. So they 3D model that whole base. There's a bunch of cutouts inside of it. Put it on a router table. The router cuts all of it out, pockets it out. We do some soldering on that project. This project, this was a little game they built. So again, we 3D modeled it, so we drew up all the different pieces, assembled it on the computer to make sure it worked, and then the laser cut it all out and assembled it. We 3D printed some dice for it, and then we spent a day playing their game and cheering each other on. What else? So this class really teaches the entire process of designing and building things. So it really takes you from the start, working through all that modeling, and then basically creating an end product. Basic machine shop. So to introduce students to machine shop tools, equipment, and machining processes. So again, they learn blueprint reading, precision measurement inspection. So if any of you work in the machine shop field, most of the tools and numbers and things we talk about are very different than wood shop or other places. So you're teaching kids about thousandths of an inch, tenths of a thousandth of an inch, and they're learning how to read tools to measure that accurately. They use machines to build parts. So this is one project we created. It's a little collapsible trench shovel. So they use a CNC plasma cutter to burn out the blade, a couple handle parts, and then the nut, the tube, the shaft, brackets there. They mill those out on the milling machine, turn stuff down on a lathe, they cut threads on a lathe. So they really learn how to do a lot of things with that. Oh, and then we do a small project on the CNC milling machine too. So at the end of this class, we spend a couple of weeks and they talk about tool paths and CNC machines, and then they create a little project on them. Then I have CNC milling and G-code class. So this is to introduce students to CNC milling and G-code programming. So they learn a lot about the machine itself, so CNC operation and maintenance. So part of the Haas machine is they have a whole curriculum just about their machine. So we go through a bunch of that. The kids learn all about testing the coolant, inspecting the machine, daily maintenance on it, things like that. They learn all about the control panel. They actually get a CNC operator certificate through Haas when they're done with this class. Right now, what that means for us is the school can apply for a tech incentive grant with those certifications. So I do have maybe kids this year that got that. Again, more blueprint reading, G-code and CAM programming. So there's two different ways to really program these machines. G-code is literally writing out line by line, saying, turn spindle on clockwise at this speed, that kind of thing. And then there's CAM programming, which is using computer software, where you actually load your tool or your parts in there, and you basically say, take these lines, mill on the inside of these lines at this speed rate, at this speed, that kind of thing. So they do both of that. That's about it. Okay, metal fabrication and welding. Introduce students to various types of welding and metal fabrication. So they will do a little bit of stick welding, MIG welding, and TIG welding. Again, they learn blueprint reading and layout work. So for each one of these classes, I know I bring up blueprint reading and layout and stuff, but it's a little bit different for everything that we do. So like blueprint reading for welding talks about the weld size, the weld shape, the type of weld, whereas the other blueprint reading is more specific to making those parts. They use manual fabrication and forming equipment, so sheet metal brakes, rollers. We have an iron worker down there that we use for bending different things and forming things. Again, they use the CNC plasma cutter, so they're using AutoCAD and SheetCam, which is the toolpath software. So this was a new project I did this year. I know everybody's like, get away from the birdhouses and the bird feeders, but this is actually a pretty high-tech bird feeder. We drew up all those parts on AutoCAD, cut them all out on a plasma cutter. You got to form them in certain order. So you got to talk about order of operations with that, because if you bend one side up, then you can't access the other one to bend it. And then they riveted it together. Most of the kids painted it. We used the CNC laser to cut out plastic windows for it to put in there. We also worked with a welder from Thermotronics. So he came in once a week and just kind of sit with the kids in the booth and dedicate time to them. So it kind of helped me divide my time better by having that person in there as well. Then other offerings, so there are several other courses at the moment that we offer, but they have not grown yet since I've been here. So I think we're planning to do the building construction next year for sure, but advanced drafting, woodworking, and building construction would be some other offerings. That's all I got.
Are there any courses that you would like to see added to the curriculum that we don't currently have?
I think the how to make almost anything class, if there was like a second level of that
Okay.
was more independent for kids, I think that would be good. Because right now, the draw to that class is pretty high, and there's nowhere to really go with it beyond that. So I think a second level maybe.
Who are the cooperators on the building construction?
Well, right now it would just be a class like in-house.
Oh, just
so
a
we would
class.
just learn about residential
Building
construction and probably do little mock-ups. And
Excellent.
So I have to ask this question. Is there any bridges from here into TC?
there is. So the CNC program, we actually have someone from NWTC coming in each morning for 3 hours. So any kid that's interested in the machine shop and G-code class could transition right into that and get, I believe it's like 16 credits. Quote me on that.
I thought it was 12, but couldn't
Okay, it might be 12 credits.
We have
I think
6 students in there now. 2 of our students are in the other 4 from different schools in the county. And it starts before school starts.
As far as other areas, I don't have direct like, sequence in, but I do bring in guest speakers, and I get the welding instructor from the tech school in town to come in and give a little presentation. So there are avenues for kids to.
So we're into a new era. Do these kids realize the opportunities for them?
That's part of my struggle is they're so used to it, and like it's every day to them. So I don't think they understand how lucky they are yet.
For opportunities, meaning like at 18, by the time you're 20, you want to do your new F-150 or 180 or whatever it is, it's not too far away from you to get. You
No,
know,
it's not. And I bring in, like I got someone from Marine Travel after they shipped at Marinette Marine, and Health Electronics and someone. So I'm bringing people in, and like the opportunities out there right now, like they're willing to pay for training, pay for school, pay you while you're being trained.
right.
Like, that's enormous.
See, I'm on TC's board, and we just had a guy from Bay Ship come and talk to us. We had our meeting up at this campus last week. They have some huge projects coming down the pipe, but they're going to need a lot of workers. And the great line he said was after he moved here, just like what happened to me, he walked out one day and said, "Oh my God, I'm on a peninsula. I only can go this way to get workers." So, but anyway, there's so much. I don't know how he ever gets the message to the kids, but you don't have to be a, masters of French history to,
There's fun feedback. So my son started at class, went home and talked to my dad, because we're working, all the dialogue that they had. So my son started quizzing him on all the tools and planers and joiners and all this kind of stuff. He had no idea that my dad had most of that in his shop, smaller stuff. So that was a whole evening for they talked for a long time. So
Awesome.
there's other benefits of what you're teaching, and I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Wish,
All right.
a lot of us wish some of that was around when we were in school.
When I give tours, that's what the older people say. We should have done that when I was in school.
Are you dating me?
I'm just saying.
I was just trying to be nice.
Yes,
Okay,
seriously.
thank you, Mr. Paul, that was great. Did we have any guests registered to speak, Carl?
Yes, we have one gentleman who would like to speak on a non-agenda item.
Okay, you can speak from there, you can come up here to the podium, whichever you would wish.
Thank you.
If you'll just tell us who you are, that would be great.
My name is Craig Corson. I live on 5026 Bayshore Drive. I'm also a business owner of a construction company. I was really glad to see what an amazing tech system that you have here. You should be very, very proud of that.
Have you seen it?
I've not been here to actually see it, but it's an incredible program.
you want to,
But-
when you're done?
I would love to meet this gentleman for the kids coming out of the school that would love to be carpenters. But I'm not here today with that kind of a message. I was, as a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, when I read the newspaper article that you said that you have brought social emotional learning to your school system, I was actually floored. If any of you have dug a little deeper into social emotional learning, it doesn't have all of the glorious things that was in that newspaper article. It has some pretty clandestine critical race theory type of things that it brings to bear. I was actually quite disturbed by that, because if you start looking into things like equity and you listen to things about race and dysphoria, the gender dysphoria, those type of things, the thing that starts to scare me is that you're teaching children some really, really bad ideology. And they can have wonderful classes about honesty or some of the other things that were in the paper, but as a school board, as a citizen of this area, I'm just asking you to look a little deeper and maybe read outside of that book of what social emotional learning is. It comes from a very, very dark place. And in my personal belief, you have brought something into the school system that's by no means good for the children at all. I just ask, I know I don't have a lot of time, this is a topic that could take hours, but I'm just suggesting that you have brought something into the program that you may not understand how dark it is.
This was in the recent Pioneer, you read the recent Pioneer Times? that-
No, it was in the polls.
In Snow Falls.
You introduced it quite gloriously that you've brought social emotional learning. If you go to the web and you type in social emotional learning, and you go a couple of pages in, they start talking about things like equity, race, all kinds of things that you really, it's not useful for these children. The word, I mean, even the word equity, if you look at the word equity and you look at the word, well, that means equality, right? It doesn't. It means the opposite. It means forced outcomes. And forced outcomes is not what we want to be teaching our children. We want to be teaching our children that they are equal to other people and they have equal opportunity and that they can, be all these wonderful things that these classes teach you. So it just was very disturbing to me to read that. I just wanted to be on the record of saying you should look deeper at it.
I didn't see that article. Did anyone else see it?
It was in Boston.
Does anyone else know who?
Well, the Pioneer Times would have been involved.
Oh, so it was in the, okay.
It comes, I guess it comes from the whole set.
It was in the Pioneer Times, okay.
Okay.
So I just, for all I know, your book could be like this wonderful, wonderful book, but social emotional learning is the clandestine stepchild of critical race theory, just so you know. If you look a little deeper, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Okay, that may be a topic for future discussion.
I do have one question, sir. Do you have a deeper background in that? Like if we wanted to have a deeper discussion to better educate ourselves, would that be something that you'd be able to, interested in helping that dialogue when there's a long?
I'd be glad to help. I don't know that I have a deeper understanding other than I read a lot.
Thank you. Okay, that's just a good data point. I was
Yeah.
just curious.
I do understand though, 90% of the population thinks equity and equality are synonyms. They are not.
They are not.
They are opposites.
I think there's a lot of buzzwords that people think are the right things,
Right, but-
and there's and
Just like
a lot of people don't pay attention.
Equity is thrown around, but it's not what Martin Luther King,
Right.
obviously.
No, I agree. It's buzzwords that people throw around, they have no idea what they're saying.
I didn't get the,
Thank you very much.
time with my pulse.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your service.
So we can have a discussion of that at another time. Are there any items anyone wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, then that agenda is approved by consent with donations from the Tavern League for $500 for girls basketball. Brian and Edie Steppens donated $250 for the Pupil Services Caring Closet. Renee and Greg Ottinger donated $10,000 for football, baseball, softball, volleyball, track, girls and boys basketball, and girls and boys cross country. Thermotronics donated jackets for the girls soccer team. And there was AED, which is a defibrillator donation, which unit will be carried by the girls soccer team, girls volleyball, girls basketball.
It's a portable unit that the family wanted to have specifically for those sports. So when they go to away meets, if the home school doesn't have one, they got one.
Just a quick, do we have a formal mechanism of sending a thank you to all these donations?
Yeah, I send a letter.
So, yeah,
I send a letter and then it states on there, thank you, and it also gives our tax ID number and that, so if they want to put it in there as a tax deduction.
All right, administrators, briefing Ms. Margaret.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of additions. The first one is that I want just to state that our last community program is tomorrow night. It was an incredibly successful community program season. There were the new programming that we put out, the old programming that people rely on was just a huge hit. We had wait lists for almost every class this year. So there was so much outreach. There was so many people calling in after the fact that I just look forward to creating something really similar next year. So I want to thank the community for their enthusiasm and their participation to want to come into school and see what school has to offer. And I also want to thank the incredible instructors who came in and shared their talents and their passions, with our community. And one of them was Brian Paul, who did a welding community program, which was a huge hit that had like 20 people on the wait list. So that is definitely a hot one for next year that I got to capitalize on. The other addition that I have, I put a couple of the Summer programming proofs, we're in the final stages of summer programming. So I just wanted the opportunity for you to see what it's going to look like this year. And what's new is that we have one completely in Spanish. We've never had that before. So I'm really proud that we're offering it to all of our families to be able to take it. I mean, everybody is invited, right? But now it's going to go back with our Spanish-speaking families, and I'm really excited about that. We are on track to have all of these printed through innovative printing next week when we're on spring break, and then the following week when we come back, all of these will be put in the backpacks for all of the elementary and middle school students. So we are on track with that, and I think we're doing good this year, so I'm proud of it. And then the final thing that I have is a little bit about academics. Is that we have this year, Mr. Hiltz and I and Miss Debbie Hurst, our reading interventionist, have been doing a lot of vetting of new pre-K through 2 literacy universal screeners. We've had a system that's called PALS that we've used for the past 9 years. That system is going away. So we've spent, I would say, the last 4 or 5 months looking at different programs. And we're meeting to make a decision very soon, but it's just been a really worthwhile, great experience because we have to make sure that we have the right tools in place to be able to identify learning gaps, specifically in literacy, so we can do early intervention. So I would say we're going to wrap up that decision soon. Well, the 3 of us mostly have
But I mean,
participated.
as far as incoming 4K.
Yes, yes, that's our screener that we use for 4K up until 2nd grade. And they give that 2 to 3 times a year, and it's an excellent opportunity to look at literacy needs and to intervene early. So we really look at that data multiple times throughout the year to make sure that every student is getting what they need. And in addition to that, lastly, we just adopted a new math intervention program called Bridges Intervention. And this spring, I'm going to be working with Emily Stoslin to plan some professional development for all of our elementary school teachers so they all know how that intervention system works so they can implement it in their classrooms beginning next year. So a good, exciting work to make sure that students are growing and being enriched. So it's been busy. Thank you.
Are you aware of, as a Spanish speaking, I just discovered this the other week at that same meeting at TC. They have a program, it's no charge, where Hispanics can come in, they take a test, and they determine what level you are, and then they have a program to teach you, or to get you beefed up in English based upon what you were there from. It's free.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. Kelly?
Thank you. Pardon me. Last year at this time we had introduced or started taking part in Tundra Tales. It was a program put on by the Packers to encourage reading amongst our students. Last year, with being the first year, we had 53% participation or completion of the program. I put in my report that we had about 60 because I didn't have all the numbers in. I'm happy to say that we're up to 62.5. That's the kind of thing that we will continue each year. I'm working on trying to increase that number. Just knowing how important reading is and making sure that you put the minutes in terms of increasing your vocabulary and those kinds of things. Also wanted to draw attention to the 4K and 5K letters of intent that we sent out through a newsletter and the response that we got back. Right now, we're looking at about 30 kids who are interested in 4K. We won't have a specific number until we actually register those students, but it's just nice to know kind of a ballpark of where we're at with that. We're at 26 5K students. That's 4 new ones that we didn't have this year in 4K. I know there's also one that is working on trying to do a tour with me, and that would be another kindergartner. So those numbers are looking up, which is exciting. Then the last thing in my report, just wanted to make sure that I let everyone know that we're interested in doing the 4K staggered start again. If you recall, the last couple of years, maybe a few years now, we bring in half of the kids on the first day, third day, and then the other half of the kids on the second day and fourth day to give them a real good chance of really understanding how school operates and what the procedures are. Only having half of their classmates there so they can really focus on that. Then on the 5th day, we bring everybody back in together. The teachers have really commented about what a difference that has made compared to what they experienced in the past. So just wanted to bring that forward, that's something we're going to do.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Could I just ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
The 4K, 5K letter of intent, it looks optimistic with the numbers
I would say so.
there. I imagine it was a non-binding survey,
Absolutely. That
not a
was,
non-dining survey.
Yep.
I had to read that 2 or 3 times to
And
try
it
to
made it
get.
right through spell check, because that's a
Yeah.
You put that there.
right. Nice job.
Thank you.
You must have been eating lunch when you did that.
That's a way to get
That's
surveys,
awesome.
not just bring them in to dine.
Right.
As Jerry says, bring food.
Right. Have any of you been, it's just, I just stumbled, and I had no idea what I was seeing, and I asked my son when it was, he told me, behind the 90L around 3:30 in the afternoon, that parking lot is full. And that's where our bus drops.
Oh, yeah.
I've not seen that parking lot, that's pretty impressive. The number of cars that are there, it's like packed.
Well, see, the Nightingale's in our district.
I understand. I'm sorry. And then I realized, someone told me that's kids who live in Sturgeon Bay, they go to school here, and that's where the bus drops them off, and the parents are picking them up. And I never realized until you see all those cars there, the numbers.
Well, Jerry, what a lot of people don't realize is 25% of our enrollment is open enrollment.
25%.
25% of our enrollment is open enrollment.
Congratulations. I mean, that's saying something.
Mr. Schaefer?
Just a couple of items. First of all, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge our production of Cinderella this last weekend. That was pretty incredible. They were kind enough to put me into the musical. I think I'm typecasted for the rest of my time here, so as a giant. But on a serious note, the kids were amazing. Their work ethic, all the adults behind the scenes, the amount of energy, passion, commitment, that everybody that's involved with this. As somebody who's never been in the theatric venue in my high school days, I guess it was just really an eye-opener about just the tremendous amount of time, effort, and but everybody's, all the adults, and how they're helping the students. And our costumes were amazing. We had one of the best costume designers around, I think. It was incredible. It just was really awesome to be a part of it. The band sounded amazing. Just a lot to be proud of, a lot of compliments about that. Something I'm really proud of, I'm excited because we did something new. Last month we did the Pride Certificate. So what we have is we have teachers acknowledging our students for following our Pride model of the poster, right? So we want those words to have value and meaning and not just be words. So it's really cool. So and I know, so you're going to really love this, because the Pioneer Way ticket and the Pioneer Pride certificate was designed by students. So that made it really cool as well. But, so teachers are acknowledging students, and what's been really awesome to see, not only the wide variety of students, but so when a student is doing something amazing or following our Pride model, the teacher writes this elaborate, well, not too elaborate, but writes out a couple of sentences about what they're acknowledging the students for. Sometimes it carries on to the back. They give it to the student's responsible for bringing it to the office. They meet either myself or one of the admin assistants that are there, and then they give the ticket. But then before they do that, we ask them to read what was said about them. And where the priceless moments come in is after they read it and you say, well, how does that make you feel? Or what do you think about that? And you see the beaming smile on their face, the pride, the acknowledgement for what they're receiving, as far as somebody acknowledging them for doing something pretty incredible, and noticing them. And what they're doing isn't going unnoticed. And then that Pioneer Way ticket gets glued onto the Pioneer Pride certificate. And we had this assembly for the middle school. One quote that I got about the middle school is after that the students were walking on air, meaning that it was incredibly positive, incredibly it was just an awesome environment for kids. One student won a prize, so everybody who was nominated gets put in for a couple of prizes. So one student won the prize. She was so excited, and the coolest thing I saw is the whole school was acknowledging her and celebrating her joy with her. And that's how, I think culture is spirited and created. And then, of course, no good deed goes unpunished. For the high school students, the grand prize winner won student VIP parking, which is the closest parking spot possible to the door, but then her vehicle got hit. So we had her too close. And it wasn't like it was like, something really big, but it happened to be Jolene Litke. I mean, I don't know who her father is or anything, but anyway, so she won the student VIP parking and the vehicle got hit.
Yeah.
So, but also with
the superintendent's parking.
What's that?
Maybe we should put the superintendent's parking.
He's got a safe park.
Yeah, so, but anyways, it was a real success, even with the high school students in particular. If I could give a really huge shout out to them, freshmen and sophomores were sitting on the gym floor for a pretty substantial amount of time. Substantial, I want to say about an hour, they might say it was longer, but they were there, they were incredibly respectful, they were dialed in, listening to the message. There was a message with each assembly, and it was centered around our pride model, to, once again, just really making sure that those are not just words, they become a way of being around here and an expectation for how, not just students, but all of us, conduct ourselves and make this the best school possible.
I did see all the pictures that were posted, and there was a really nice mix of kids. There were kids that I would expect, and then there were kids that I thought, wow, good for you, because I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
So it was good. Does anyone have questions they'd like to direct on the AD or gifted and talented report? And we'll hear from the superintendent.
In your packet, you have a list of board policies that have technical changes, basically grammatical or small words that change the meaning of it. And then it's been asked in the past about our students and the college credits they earn while they're here. We have 46 seniors this year. 44 of them are receiving some sort of credit beyond high school, and they range from 3 credits to 25 credits. We have 9 students who are receiving the 3, and then we have 4 students who are receiving 25. Some are NWTC credits, some are UW credits, and sometimes the NWTC credits will transfer to UW system, some of the NWTC do not, but there are quite a few. So if you're here, other schools are having success with their kids getting credits while they're in high school.
We are too.
We go from 3 to 25 for the range, and 44 out of 46 kids are receiving it, so that's pretty good numbers.
Anything else? I'll just mention this. There is a committee that's begun to plan to celebrate and commemorate the school's 100th year anniversary, which the first day of school was in September 11th or something, 1924. So the first step is looking for a slogan and a logo, and there's a contest, maybe you've seen it somewhere, there's a contest running, they'll be collecting those, and that committee will meet early April 5th maybe, to determine the slogan, and then it'll go to Denny Plur, a former graduate who has graphic training, to create some logos for that committee to look at. It's really in an informal stage right now, just trying to determine what the major things are that this school district should do to commemorate. So after that meeting next month, I'll bring some more information back. But it's a pretty good committee. There's some community members, there's some teachers, there are, it's a diverse committee, I'll say. And then other committee reports, property, buildings, and grounds.
They did include the 10-year plan.
Yeah, we met, we talked about a few minor things that we're still working on with Myron, building, and that sort of thing. And then we spent time on the 10-year maintenance plan that we developed and was in the packet. Some big ticket items obviously are the air handlers and chillers for gym, band choir, and kitchen. So it's a matter of, just identifying those needs over a 10-year period and trying to, work them into the budget and that sort of thing. We're going to be reestablishing the old trail system in the wood area behind the school here, hopefully. I volunteered to help Mike Matt go through there and reestablish that. So that was something that we're going to be working on. So, yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Just a question.
Anything else?
I know nothing about stuff, okay. I just know from my past experience, which I didn't see here, but what we seem to have in our budgets every year during my previous life was tuck point. It would be tuck point, tuck point, tuck point. Is that something that should be in this? Or is that something else?
Well, with the old 1924 building, I mean, we were constantly tuck pointing all of these.
So how about the 65 building? Now that's years old.
I don't know, we have determined the need to do a lot of tuck pointing on that brickwork.
We have it, no.
It was mainly the old,
What do you look for? I don't know.
the old 24.
I'm just saying that we were, so that building was a 64 building
Yeah.
in the hospital. They're constantly tuck pointing.
Well, I mean, so does that, I don't know that process, but I assume, would you get someone to inspect it to see if it's needed? So we haven't probably brought in an inspector in a while because we think we're good.
In my experience was we would block out, this year we do this wall, next year we do this wall, and then we do one wall. It's never ended.
What maybe for the next meeting is
And this is an area I know nothing about. Okay?
but discuss bringing an expert in to do
I don't
that.
know the tech. I think it's to go look for the cracks and fill them in, right?
Special tools.
Yeah. There was something that we always thought that they always said was going to save us money in the long run.
That's something Dan could,
I'll have Dan in the next committee.
and something else I guess I forgot to mention was the electronic sign out in front of school. We're going to proceed with contacting we already,
I already emailed them,
Kyle's
I asked for a couple options and haven't heard back.
across.
Was that just last week we met?
And holding our, and trying to keep our connection to the FFA alumni group that initially funded the old electronic sign. And, we've got the Elliot Robert Memorial plaque there, and somehow incorporating that into the new sign as well, so we don't lose track of that.
And we have permission to do this on the highway, so it can be two
Yeah,
separate.
we received permission from York County Planning that we are
We're going to
exempt.
stay on that.
Yeah, that was a surprising development, I'd say.
The other times it is. Surprising.
It took a while, yeah, but it's good.
Yeah, it works sometimes.
Anything
Follow
else
the
on property,
process.
buildings and grounds?
Sometimes it works.
Communication committee met on Monday, and they determined articles and timing for the next newspaper, which will come out.
It was a nice, fantastic spotlight.
There is. There is. We always have a pioneer spotlight, someone from the community, someone from the school that's contributed and done great. And Mr. T is this community spotlight this time, being an alumni coming up through the ranks, and I think also it'll be a good education for the community on how much technology is needed to keep the school, keep the students running and educated. So, and it will do a commemorative 100-year anniversary edition sometime next summer. And when that slogan and logo are created, we're going to look to have created like a banner for everybody's email, so everybody's email looks the same. It's got that logo there, and it'll say their name, their contact information, their position. Policy committee.
We met in the snowstorm. Some of us were virtual. You will see the results of our meeting here tonight in the policies that we reviewed, and we are up to date.
So we were complimented by the company that we were far ahead.
Yes.
And the other schools are.
Yes, yes, we are.
Good. Negotiations.
We met with the SEA last Thursday night. They gave us their proposal, and
Wasn't much, it was really just receiving their proposal, and I guess we'll receive maybe more information later tonight from Mr. Lickey. Anything on the budget report?
your summary page there, we received $4,399,292.36 in tax levy payments, which means totally this, for this property value, our property taxes, we received $8,591,693.01, which is 71% collected. The rest, the remaining will come in July and August. Carl's done some claims for special ed aid of $75,129. He's also followed up the claims for ESSER 2. So we're up to date on ESSER 2, and now he'll start submitting claims for the ESSER 3 funds, which he has through next year to claim. Yeah, those are the highlights.
Anything on facilities?
I covered the building and grounds. Well, we had sewer backup in the locker rooms again. Was that last week?
Yeah.
The week prior, the septic guy was here, so that was kind of irritating to have it a week after it was worked on. Yeah, that's twice this school year.
I guess under, what is the status or action plan for the school zone flashing lights?
Yes, okay. Stephen and Dan have been working with the company, and right now, you can't do it remote, and the company, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, the company hasn't been much assistance, so Dan and Stephen are gonna have to go out there, but it's we call it the base, is buried in snow and ice right now.
Yes.
So when that gets unfrozen, thawed out, then they can actually open up and work on it inside there.
We changed the system because it was supposed to be wireless, so we could cellularly connect and upload the schedule, and that just hasn't worked for us since we got it. The company we bought from has only one IT man, and he doesn't respond to phone calls, and he's slow with his emails. So when we finally got a hold of him, it was, oh, there's a bypass if you go in there and you connect to it, but you need to unscrew part of the base to get to the micro USB cable to upload the schedule. That is where we're at. Yeah, this process has gone on for many months.
So we know about it, but when the snow and ice is gone, then they can get down in there. And it's supposed to work at that point. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not so sold on this company, the fact it's going to work, because we've had so many problems, but maybe that is exactly the answer.
So maybe it's in the job description under other duties as assigned, the superintendent that was working, you go there at 3 o'clock with a sign, you know, flag and wave it.
Yeah.
I know in the mornings, there's 2 police officers
The
sitting
squad
in
car,
the
parked a squad car out there.
So they are out there.
Yeah, the other
White
one
lights
is
flashing on it.
waiting for a thaw now, and we hope it gets worked. It's been a problem.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is it needs to be fixed. It's for safety reasons. It's been like this all year.
Yeah.
We live in Wisconsin.
So it never
Use a
blinks?
shovel, dig it out.
It never blinks?
No, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked all year. And I actually thought they got rid of the school zone. Like, wouldn't it be rid of the school zone? And then I know it's challenging and vendors are tough to work with. I get that every day. So your explanation, it makes sense, but I would tell this TAPCon that, is that who it is, right?
Yep.
That, and they may not care, but we may not find another vendor.
Maybe it's a COVID issue.
What's that?
It's a COVID issue.
Well, that's what everyone
It's
says.
a COVID.
Tech support is a phone call, like you said, you just never got one back. So.
Yep.
Your standards are really high though, for return calls and response.
Yeah, we're not talking about your tech support. That is,
No,
just
it's
to
the
clarify.
opposite.
No, but anybody's gonna fail by his standards. He's so good. Okay. Don't have anything for board goals. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policy 5830?
I would move to approve the second reading of revised policy 5830, student fund raising.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So we have this document that Sue prepared and is going to go to the Capitol next Tuesday to talk to our legislators about Sevastopol's position on the governor's budget matters. I don't want to belabor this, but this is the first time the school board has really gotten involved in looking at this and talking about a position. And I kept reading this and wondering, can we, the document's good, but can we add to it to quantify some of this? For instance, under the revenue limit adjustment, we quote the CPI for 21 and 22, 23. Should we add that it's 8% for the next year?
On the listening session with Joel Kitchens, I brought that up, that the revenue formula, which was developed in 1993, 94, really hasn't had any significant raises per student. And his fallback answer was, Joel Kitchens is past school board president. His fallback answer was, you're right, but I don't think it's going to have any traction in the assembly.
Well, because they had a blue ribbon panel that made a recommendation, he was part of that, and we never did anything on
That was like the 15th Blue Ribbon Commission.
Well,
None of them have come up.
Well, that's my point, is there's
Right.
a problem.
And does he say why does he think it's not going to have traction?
Well, he says his colleagues,
I
Well, you know
know,
what,
because all the big schools don't want that.
no, every school district
Right.
is subject to it. And he knows very well about it. But you know what the problem really is? There's a lot of assembly people who don't even know what the formula is or what it represents, and they block vote. So,
These are the figures that WASB is using.
yeah. I mean,
Because all of this really ties back to the revenue limit. We don't have enough special.
and he knows that every school district in York County is presently under an operational referendum of some sort. And,
So my question though is there, we add the 8%.
8% is a lot larger number than 1.23 and 4.7. It's actually the trend.
yeah, these are just recent ones.
Right.
They've lost track since 1994, so.
So my question was, should we add the 8%?
Well, if you're trying to make a point, I would add more beefier numbers. I mean, that would, if we could just add that, if it's currently published.
You have to go back quite a ways.
No, this year, right now.
Oh, just this year?
8%, folks.
Yeah, you can throw that in.
I mean, how do you take 8% out of your budget and, I mean, in theory, right, give an 8% raise on our budget? I mean, with the numbers and the equation we're talking about. That's why it matters so much
Yeah,
right now.
it hasn't been added to the student cost.
Or to our budget in any way, yes, correct.
Yeah.
All right.
As they're developing their budget for next year, if we're facing 8% in July, they should address it.
Right.
You want 8% added for 23, 24?
That'd be great, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The
Got it.
under under fuel costs, and again, this is a matter of showing reinforcing the number. Can we say what we spent so far this year? Can we say, and if the current price per gallon prevails, we'll spend this much in this school year? And maybe we should talk about how many miles this school district, maybe we should say our school district is 454 miles and our buses travel 225 miles every day.
Dan can tell you how many miles are 9 rounds run a day. I think it says 53,000 last year, and I know you're in January, you had 39, and January's halfway through the year. I would think they could figure out 39 and 39 is going to be 80,000, right?
I think you'd have to, I don't know, I think you have to say halfway through the year, we're already at 39,420.
Okay,
Yes, I think you have to say that you're halfway
Did
through.
this spoon it to them? So rather than say January, which we all know is common sense is halfway through the school year, say halfway through the year. Okay.
So instead of as of January 23, halfway through this school year, our cost, is that right, Jeff?
Yeah.
That's my point. Some of these things I feel like we have to
Yeah, break it down.
break it down for them.
This is for who though?
Well, this is for the legislators, but this is also a document we could give to, we could present to the public. We could send this to the Pulse so that our public knows what.
I mean, an issue like this, like mileage with buses, no one's like, you need to get together with all the rural school districts in Wisconsin to present the thousands of miles that these schools go compared to the city schools, which don't go really that much. As dramatic effect that there is an issue here, it needs to be addressed.
Okay,
To me, one person, one school district, I think the government loves you when you just go one at a time, because then they don't.
That's why I don't think there's a lot of, that's why I personally don't think there's a lot of use in going down there and talking to them one person at a time. But if we're talking to them, let's try to spell it out for them.
okay, so you want halfway through the school year, our costs were already 39,000, et cetera. Got it.
This, we all talk about, the increased behavioral and emotional problems of the kids. Can we quantify that number in some way for the students that need services and aren't getting it in our school district, either by number or percentage? And why is the 8,000, you're getting $375,000 in care funding. Why is that so insufficient for us? Why is that insufficient? Is there a way to quantify that?
Have we talked, is there some that are on waiting lists or would benefit from it? I mean,
One of the things that makes me think about right away is the STRIDE program and how many students are being served and how many applications have been sent and not gotten, that aren't being served.
So hard
I
numbers.
can
Okay, when you say sent, tell them where they get sent to,
distribute to parents,
and the parents don't bring them
and
back.
the parents don't bring them back, but they've been recommended to go. So we send out a lot of STRIDE applications because it's recommended, but the parent ultimately has to sign off and
Right.
say, yes, I want the services for my student. So that's where I
So
instantly
that's
say,
hard to judge them because we send
Why
them
are
and say
they-
we think so, but the parent can say no, and so did the kid need help or not? We're not doctors to make that determination.
So the kids whose parents have said, okay, I want my kid to have services.
yes,
They're being serviced,
yes.
and we have money to do that?
No, well, Sevastopol doesn't, because it goes through the parent and guardian's insurance. Now, if the insurance is not covered by Bellin, the United Way helps cover the cost of the counseling. So it's not, money does not come from the school for the STRIDE program.
because we don't have it. Imagine we got funded.
Correct.
So the numbers do matter.
So they would.
Because remember, the reason we're doing this, I actually do believe this isn't gonna make a difference, right? But here's where it does make a difference.
Yeah.
You know how you get all the schools to do it? One school does it. And now, once this is documented, we put it in our file cabinet and on this hard drive, and we'll save it. And then when all of a sudden we have budget issues at the school and teacher shortages because our school heads are coming and we're talking operational referendums, this is very good information to send out to all our taxpayers and say, here's the situation, and P.S., while you're voting, pay attention, but these are things that matter. So something like this would be something to go out for our next operator and related to this. When we talk operational referendums, why do we need them? This is some of the data for that. And it's not a good or bad, I'm just saying because we know why most schools are under operational referendums because they kind of change some of the approach. There's good and bad to that depending on the day of who you're talking to. But, so that's why I think maybe adding a few more dates, like I would think the numbers that are recommended,
yeah.
the people that are recommended, I think matter.
Yeah.
We have no social worker service here.
Right, and then because they can come back to, well, they don't have insurance. Well, that's a different dialogue, but maybe, because I hear this too, there's a growing recognition of school shootings and all these other challenges that we all are monitoring. What's going on? Are we doing the right things? Well, resources help solve problems. So maybe if it doesn't take too much, add the numbers in, because yeah, if it was free and discreet like some of our programs are, a lot of these parents would probably say, okay, yeah, that help, my kid might benefit from that.
Another piece that
I
had a little bit onto what Sue had said with the social worker too is we're the only district that doesn't have a school psychologist.
Right.
Now, we get by, we are all right, but I think that'd be important for the public to kind of know. And we can't have
why do
because we
need
can't
social-
have every position because we have a budget that we have to stay into.
Right.
We're not funded to where.
Well, and we're unique.
That's
to the
kind of
other
where we're
districts.
going.
You know what I'm saying? No,
Well, and we're unique to the other districts where we
That
have
would be
5
important
personnel
for-
dedicated to English language learners. Our other schools in the county don't have what we have for ELL departments, so we need to get some help in that area.
I think that's a great point too.
Because we spend our resources in that area, others don't have to spend it there.
So that's ELL is a separate one. This one,
Yeah.
but can we say in
I'd
this
like
one
to-
to reinforce that why,
Let's get
the need is there. Why is the need there? What don't you have? What don't you
I'd
have?
like to look at that and give you some information about that.
Now, the hustle on that is Sue's going down to the Capitol, is it Tuesday?
Well, I'm leaving Tuesday.
Leaving Tuesday, so.
I can jot down some
looking
things.
into it.
Sue and I have talked a little bit too, but I
Yeah.
think at least that starting list that you suggested, absolutely.
If they want to
Because
check
instead
our
of saying,
numbers,
we
they
just
are
can't
welcome to
afford
come
it.
and have a meeting with us.
You want to email me something?
I will
Right.
anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's get it started. Go ahead.
Thank you. The staff shortages are facing all students. Can we this should be tied to the revenue student. Why, this is one of the reasons the revenue limit needs to be increased so that we have more money to pay teachers.
But the problem with the staff shortages is when there's a shortage of staff, each school district is jockeying against each
Right.
other. And so you spend more money on, you need more money for salary and benefits because we're stealing each other's teachers and this teachers are free agents and bouncing, We need the gap of shortage of staff filled. I don't know how that's going to happen statewide though. I mean, it's happening in every industry right now, but.
Well, we can see the salaries that Gibraltar is offering compared to,
We're saying such shortage require additional dollars.
Right, but if we get extra dollars, Gibraltar's gonna get extra dollars too, because they had saved 600 kids, and so we'll never catch up to the Joneses on that one, and we're ahead of other districts in
Right.
that regard. So I don't know how money is gonna save the staff shortages, because the number of workers out in the state that are available.
well, it can also be used to, if we have paraprofessionals, for instance, who would be interested in getting certified as a teacher to provide tuition money for them to
We've done
accomplish.
that 3 times here.
Pardon me?
We've done that 3 times here.
Yes, and we may have to do it more.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
maybe we should add that to this one, or if money isn't going to fix it, just take this one off and give them one less to think about. Maybe we should ask add the paraprofessional.
It's grow your own.
Right. Yeah, that's what we've done 3 times here.
Yeah, and I can add that if that's what the board wants.
Yeah, if they would financially support a grow your own program,
Okay,
something like that. Training for aides to become teachers.
Is there any way we're talking
And they
about-
should know what grow your own is, but the public isn't going to know what grow your own is, so we kind of need to spell that out for the
Does
public.
anybody ever examine how much the school systems would save by eliminating a lot of the state bureaucracy?
We're not going to go, we're not going to
Well, I mean,
go.
but that catches the ears of lawmakers. I mean, like, if I retire here and I have a master's in history, and I'm retired, I can't walk in here and teach history, can I? If I've been teaching history in college, I have to go get a license.
You have to get a license.
Huh?
you can get certified.
Yeah, but so I can get a license, but I can't, eventually I have to go take some education classes, right? Do something that probably do all my life.
CISA offers a lot of programs.
But that's just bureaucracy. If I'm an accomplished person in whatever, whether it's a shop or something like that, I can go to TC and teach. I can teach the next level of how to run all this equipment.
But
Well,
it's higher
I can't walk in
ed
here and
compared to K-12 education is different than higher ed.
No, it isn't.
It is according to the system.
That's according to the system.
Right.
But I'm saying that's
the
the real
And
soul
you're dealing with
searching.
adult learners and with minors here, and so
Well,
there's
and
more
this budget-
restrictions of
But that's
minors.
something that catches politicians.
Are we going into, so this is kind of for school districts, but does this lead to like DPI too? Because there's a lot of problems all our schools have. And for a simple person like me, DPI would be at the right level for all the schools and how to handle that. Like one that someday I'll bring up here, ChatGPT. It's an artificial intelligence, you don't have to worry about it. It exists there today, you can log in right now, and all our homework from our high school can be created there, like that. I know it is. What are we doing to prevent it? You can pay money for tools, like, I know University of La Crosse, in case Western Reserve University, because that's where my kids go, they have all their software in place that valid checks for this. Has this school started to address that? And how do we handle that? Because there's some real, Khan Academy has done a great job integrating it. It's awesome. You should go get some tutoring from Khan Academy. Holy awesome, right? I was just looking at it. I mean, use that in class, by the way. But so my point is this. I'm going too far down that path. Would this be a place too to bring up? Is there money going to DPI, or what is DPI doing for all these cross-cutting issues that we're facing?
Well,
Where's the guidance and coordination?
The place for that would be in resolutions submitted to WASB.
So that's a different channel. Okay.
Right. But we certainly could do that for the fall, absolutely.
The fall, perfect. I know it's not, okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah.
It's just-
Put that on your list. for-
I'm learning about that, is
Yeah.
why I brought it up.
This is really scary. I've been reading about that, hearing about that. And that's only like 2 years away. All these kids don't have to do any homework.
It's here now.
It's here, there, they should know
It's
their
ready.
phone and their
Go log
computer.
on. It's
They'll
ready.
write all their essays for them, everything.
Mr. Chambers had to deal with a couple of those.
Are you really already?
So my only point, well,
Plagiarism.
put it on your thing for resources to
I
go.
know what it is. I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw
Form of plagiarism.
it. I saw it.
It's
It's
form of
plagiarism.
It's real.
It's handing in someone else's work that's not yours.
No, it's not somebody else, it's their computer's work.
Well, if that's someone else, it's not yours. I don't care if it's artificial or if someone else wrote it.
Well, that goes to the point of there needs, on a different day, there needs to be a lot of discussion on how to handle that.
Right, okay.
Okay, so, last two here. I don't know, is the English language learners on this?
That's what the English learners, it's now English learners.
Yeah.
It's English language learners, now it's down to EL.
It's just EL, English learner.
Okay.
It's switched over time.
So my question on that is, we need more money. We've spent all this money, we spend this money. Should we quantify that by saying what our population is? We have, what I understand is a significant population of EL
I believe we
learners.
have 34 this year, and it's been steady the last couple of years. I think we're up to 40 at one point.
And then many come in not speaking English at all.
Is that a percentage of this high school or?
More
That's
coming
K-12.
in without speaking any English at all.
So we should say that, we should quantify that need here.
there might be lower numbers, but the numbers that you see in the pupil services, just this, in the past 4 months, there's been 3 students that have come in that have no English at all. So the majority of the EL resources go there. So it's learning how to distribute those resources.
Well, the English learners are judged 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on their level. And so we're getting more of the zeros,
We're
which
getting
take
zeros and
more
ones.
time and effort. But Carl, on the last line, you don't have a packet? You have a packet?
Yeah.
Okay, in the letter, when it says as of January of 120, it should, for that one, we should say for 23, 24, it's projected, or 22, 23, it's projected we'll spend,
241.
that's what it should be, to show it's more than,
Or the halfway through thing. just to
Okay.
make up-
right.
Well, the halfway through thing is the half, it's basically half of what 21, 22.
Okay, let's go back to what Kyle was saying.
It is a change.
Kyle, what was your statement there?
The statement was, rather than saying as of January, same thing as what we had for the cost of fuel,
Okay,
is it's projected for this school year, and Carl, you know what that number's gonna be, or halfway through, it's 121,000 already, so they know it's gonna be greater.
okay,
Well,
got it.
240 is this, what is the, do we have a projection that's bigger than 241?
I don't know,
It might be consistent at about 241 is what it looks like, if you double that number.
right?
And that's consistent, but it's still big, you know. a
Well, I
growth.
jumped up from 195 to 241.
Right.
They read that much between the lines, that's, $45,000.
So my point is, we're telling them we need increased funding. Why do we need increased funding? Because we've got a significant
I do
population,
think
because
if
they're
you,
coming to us and
if
can't
you
speak
could
English.
categorize that, I mean,
I can.
watch the news, people,
Yep.
and it's good for them to realize it's affecting everyone.
We have
Well,
39, we have 39
But it's not,
students.
Dave. It's affecting every state, but like affects our district. It doesn't impact neighboring districts as much as us. We have more English language learners than other districts have.
Well, so that's, I mean, put that in here, that's what I was.
Yeah, and that's why I like the funding for that, because that's fair, because it sends the money to the place where the need is. This money in this kind of program should not go to Benton, Wisconsin, or to Elroy, Wisconsin, because they don't have the need that Darlington and Sevastopol have.
Well, where I'm going with, if you add some of that zero level stuff in some brief way, and by Tuesday, that puts meat on this and not to mention projections. So I'm guessing next year, so we're gonna hit 240, 250 the end of this year, next year's gonna be higher. Right, so
I have my
we're gonna have to
projections in
make
my
a larger
office.
investment.
Yeah, I have projections for next year in my office.
You know, we have 5 staff members dedicated to it.
Well, what's that number?
I gotta do that.
Put it in here.
Okay.
If you got projections, I mean, it's gonna be higher than 240. That's what you're trying to sell these points that maybe you should pay attention. And you're right, maybe it's by school, so set up a program where we can do more reporting.
Statewide, you're right, that statewide is going to become a bigger and bigger problem, but it's pocketed, you know?
Yeah, you know, what you're saying, I agree with.
Mhm.
And I like what you were saying is, the more teeth you put into it, it doesn't, someone's whining again. No, they have actual numbers, there's projections, there's actually budgets, I mean,
Well, we have
someone might
600
actually
kids.
read this, you
We
know.
have 600 kids and we dedicate 5 staff members to English
39.
learners. Gibraltar's got 600 kids, they don't have 5 teachers in that, or 5 teachers or 8 dedicated to that because they don't have a need up there like we do. So then our resources go there. So our resources end up in 5 people are concentrating on 34 kids because we have a need there. But if we did have a situation, we could spread that money over the other 600 kids.
How many kids in the EL?
Right now
Right,
it's
currently, we have 39.
39, okay.
Yeah.
So I think for consideration between you two smart people is, I would think of the 5 staff members per 600 kids. That's a credible data that our superintendent thinks is higher than most with his reference.
Once for
The
sure.
projection for the next year, I think would be important. And then if you could roll in, I mean, these are recommendations, that 0 level, that we're coming in
What that
and,
means.
which
Yeah,
supports the
exactly.
projection.
Yeah.
And
We have that written, what that looks like.
we're already a page and a half, what's another, I mean, right? I mean, if you're gonna read that far, I'll get more data, and then it'll be a page and 3/4.
I don't know if it'll all do any good with the legislators, because they kind of know, I think they know what they're gonna do, but I think this is gonna be useful for public information later on.
Next year.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet our public doesn't know about our
Maybe
English learners.
in the supposed to be for the English language thing, you should ask the
No.
legislators that, maybe they should change the law so that these kids actually spend all this time on educating, then drive a car. Because right now they can't get a driver's license.
Yeah, that came up when we,
yes,
The
that
last-
came up in the,
Wait, what's that?
They cannot get a driver's license.
right.
Who?
English language kids. You cannot get a driver's license.
That was discussed at Joe's listening
Wait, why
session.
is that?
Okay, but because they're not US citizens.
And our state legislature is worried.
Oh, that's a
that they-
different,
Yeah, but
That's not.
I thought you were talking a
That's not a school
non-English
district
language
thing.
learner.
No, that's not.
That's not.
That's a different, that's a different issue.
That's a different
If
topic.
they're a US citizen, that's a zero level.
Well, you don't have
And
any
we
US
get-
citizens.
The last one is, as I recall, we were not going to support the $20 million a year reading initiative because we didn't really think it was going to, we recognized, the state may be down in reading, but that proposal wasn't, with the reading coaches, really wasn't going to help.
I don't think that's going to put fruits in the ground where we need it. I think that's.
So I thought we were going to take that one out.
All right, we'll take it out. It is getting a lot of play. It got a lot of play at Representative Kitchen's listening session too from community members.
I'm sure it will but they don't under.
Would we get any of it? I don't
It
think
would be
Sevastopol
47,
would get any.
what I read, if they divided it evenly, it would be $47,000 per school district. But are they going to give it to Sevastopol? Are Sevastopol going to get that coaching because our reading scores are above the state average? Or is all the help going to go to?
It's 47 per school, so Racine and Milwaukee only get 47,000.
That would be average. That would be average.
No, Milwaukee's going to get way more.
They're gonna get way
less.
15% of the kids in the.
We know how the
state
school
center.
structure
Right,
works.
but it's-
We don't pay for success, we pay for failure.
So
Okay, what else?
I think that was it. It was a great document. I just wanted to, hope we could put a little more teeth into it to, maybe for the legislators, but mostly for the public.
And you want all the board
And I
members
think it should be,
listed?
come from the Board of Sevastopol, District of Sevastopol Board of Education.
Yeah, I think you should save all that stuff in our budget for when we go back to the voters for more money in our budget and show them what our trials and tribulations
Well,
are.
these
That's
are-
A consistent message is okay, so
These are
we
some-
can read
No,
you.
that's fine.
So
I mean, the data
putting it in here is
that's what we should
good,
use.
and we'll come back to this and absolutely use it.
Don't lose it.
I would like to add my email address because if somebody wants to follow up, they need to know where to follow up. And if I hear from anybody, I can assure you I will bring it back to this board.
Okay,
That's good, that's all right.
good. All right.
Bless you.
I don't know. Do we need a motion to approve those changes to the document?
So moved to approve changes to the document which we just discussed in the things too.
That's it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards Board Member Cost Approval.
There's no document back, it was just discussion last month about going to events and how much it costs and what we're doing. Yep. If you want to have it, I don't know.
I think maybe we'll table this. There are Wisconsin Association of School Boards holds a lot of events and seminars, and topics and things. And we get those things in the mail and some go, some don't. My thought was maybe we should look at a calendar every couple of months and see, well, what's out there and should we send someone? Or this is not really worth sending someone, because it is always an expense. Maybe next meeting I'll bring some additional information on that.
Yeah, I think the discussion could be something like, we asked all our staff members to make little recommendation sheets, on why this, something is good for me, and I don't know, it's not too unreasonable to say that just to keep all the board members posted of what, this is what's going on, this is why there's value, and this is what I would like to vote. That's- Most programs would have a smaller question.
So I'll try to bring some different, better information next time.
There's a recurring request on meetings. Plus, some other people might have time to join, which is good.
Then we have a FMLA request from Mr. Paul.
his wife's having a baby, it's great.
Are you okay with his requested schedule?
Yeah.
Move to approve the FMLA for Mr. Brian Paul.
Second.
This is a federal requirement, what he's asking for. And
It always comes to us.
The only discussion is kind of how he lays out his requested, or the family lays out the requested time off, right? There's a
Again,
little
they can
wiggle.
request the lowest amount of hours that you give out in sick time.
Sometimes though, they request to be off every Friday or every Monday.
Right.
But
That's fine, yeah.
We always approve them.
I hope to take one day off a week for a few remaining weeks. It's really not sure exactly what day yet because they're in the daycare stuff, but maybe we'll down and they'll take the days off and all day.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Book selection committee, this came out of discussion, out of the sessions at the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, school board convention, and a school district, I don't remember the school district. They have been receiving requests for book bans, which I suppose could be on the rise anywhere, and they have a book selection committee. They have a book selection committee of staff, community members, teachers. They primarily, as I understood it, looked at the band requests, not the whole selection. Is that your understanding, Sue?
Not to what?
They didn't sit down every year and say, okay, these are the books that we're gonna buy for our library. They were focused more on any band requests.
Request for a book to be banned from the library.
Right. And other districts have set up committees prior to having issues raised so that you have a standing committee which then can review. It doesn't look like you're creating the committee to deal with the requests that you receive.
So at this time, should Sevastopol set up a committee, a book selection committee, so that it's a standing committee in case something arises? And is it for the purpose of looking at requested book bans, or is it for the purpose of looking at
Current inventory.
book purchases?
Current inventory and future inventory, which way you want it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I have some information from the Wausau district regarding what they call it a reconsideration committee. And it was made up of one central office administrator in their case, one member of the school teaching staff chosen by the school staff, one member of the library media center professional staff chosen by the library media center professional staff, one member of the school parent organization chosen by the parent organization, 2 high school students chosen by the student governing body, which in our case would be the student council.
Right. Wausau's a lot larger than us, so we don't make choices, and right now we don't have a parent organization. We don't have a PTO.
No, but we do have parents who have been involved in the PTO.
Right, so do you want a committee formed for when there's a book for reconsideration, or are you looking for a committee just?
Well, because
Right.
by our whole structure, we develop ad hoc committees all the time. That's a normal process. I don't think it indicates anything if we don't have a committee when we have a new issue. Good deal. And then you can say, and quite frankly, if it's a highly scientific book that's being reviewed, you might want more STEM-related people to help review that. If you have a highly history-related book, you might want someone with that expertise. So I'm just questioning, I think when we get the challenge, we should put the right committee together to review that. I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning, why do we need a standing committee? It's a question.
I just want to ask the book people back there, do we have we had requests for book bans or questioning book content?
I have not had a parent confront me ever in all my 34 years. And when I had that form signed by parents, everyone signed it this year too, that their child could check out books. So in my 34 years, personally, me, I've never had anyone talk to me about banning a book.
The day will probably come though, because it's popping
Right.
up more and more across the state.
Right.
But what you
Across the nation.
said was true, is most schools, they do not set up the reconsideration committee exactly as it is until there is an issue. But there are people that maybe, like teachers from the elementary, maybe there would be someone who would like to be on the committee, and maybe an English teacher or students. But like you said, if it's a specific topic, then we would want to make sure that that person representing has the knowledge.
And as far as book selection, so you purchase books every year,
Right.
and you have a catalog, and how do you pick them?
I have reread from journals, professional journals. I belong to WIMTA. I look at recommendations from CCPC. I look at, it's all professional reviews. And recommendations from staff members or students have a selection that they would like, then I go and check it out first and then.
So I'm assuming those
purchase
books
it.
are screened before they even get to you
Right.
anyway.
I think the
Right.
issue is nationally, is a lot of those, whoever groups are, those external groups, the National Association of Good Books or something like that, are approving books that the average parents would not ever allow in their home. That's where I think it's no longer an issue of, do we have catcher in the rye in the library? It's gone way beyond that, and there is a great suspicion between large segments of society and the educational establishment. There was a time when parents felt they could trust the educational establishment to make the right decisions. But I think there's a large part of the people out there, and probably parents, who are very suspicious of the educational environment, establishment, because they feel they're going down the wrong road. As we heard from the guest speaker earlier at the beginning of the meeting, there is a lot of sound and fury going on there. And I respect what you're saying, but if you establish a committee with all the insiders, it's an inside deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
You still have to.
Wait, I got a question, if I may, over here. Thanks for being part of this. How many books a year do we buy in the library?
I just purchased about 200 a few weeks ago.
So how many of those 200?
When you say 200, is
Yeah.
that 200 new titles?
How many
or
new
200?
Two titles for
Titles.
the elementary.
200 new titles.
That just came in. Right?
Okay, so the only thing I would add to this is, I think you set up a committee when you need an action, but I do agree with what you're saying. So I didn't know we bought 200 new titles every year. And I now kind of think maybe we can have a discussion about do the new titles in today's world. Do we do something to improve the I hate these words, improve the transparency and maintain the trust of the selection, right? That's what that would do, is offering it to the community, but I mean, it's just a discussion because there's pros and cons about any community. We talk about it all the time. It depends, you know, if I pick these three people versus these three
always have
people.
different opinions.
Bridget, you said 200 books you just recently purchased, right, for elementary? How many school-wide, all year long, how many total books, new titles?
School-wide, I'm not sure what.
Everybody, yeah, you order them all, so
Oh, I
take a
think that's
guess.
for all the classrooms and stuff too.
No, but you order for the two libraries.
I'd say about, because most books cost about $20 a piece nowadays, so it would be about 300 and some books.
All right, 300 total for the year, okay,
No, that's a good, so 300 new titles.
new titles.
And Dave, to get at your concern about the committee, whether it was a history book or a science book, at Wausau, they did say the reconsideration committee may choose to consult district support staff and/or community persons with related professional knowledge. So it might be somebody from thermotronics if you're ordering a book that deals with something in that area.
But that's not,
No, I think that's not the,
that's not the
if we're
issue.
challenging a specific
We have
book,
a history book here
the
that
growing
says that
thing
George
is
Washington was a racist.
who picks,
Yeah.
I know you do.
But Dave, you
This is
said
not at you, I'm just saying,
you
who
bring
picks the
in
300
somebody
books?
with a knowledge of history or
He's
science.
moved 300. Who picks the 300 books? 300 books.
Well, you're talking about selection, that's different than a
Well, because
challenge.
if your selection criteria is sound, we will reduce the
Right.
challenges.
Well, and I think.
So let's get right up front and discuss it, and now, this may not be possible for 300
I
books.
think
don't know.
Bridget was saying that she has professional library guidelines.
Right.
Yeah, but what library?
What library?
Do we approve that library?
The University of Stanford?
No, professional organizations for
Well, his
K-12
comment applies to
libraries.
that.
They want local control, what they're saying.
So are you suggesting then that there be a committee that reviews titles to be purchased?
Yeah, new titles, that's what this whole thing is about, is the concern is, let's take this in reverse. The concern is some book in our library right now is offensive to somebody. Right now, okay, there's a lot of books like that. So then somebody comes to us and says, I don't like this book in your library, right? And then we do a reconsideration committee. What I'm suggesting is what that other gentleman that just spoke to us is simple. Dig deeper in our criteria of making decisions, which is, you've all heard me say critical thinking. So all these organizations that you refer to, which are probably awesome, you can dig in to that organization and you can find out the fundamentals, how they select books, how they prioritize books, and what they recommend. You could do that with time and money, right? And find out so that these professional organizations really hit the mark for elementary K through 12 in Wisconsin, right? That would be an activity that you could look at, because there's some organizations you dig into and you're like, yeah, I don't know that our taxpayers would support that. And we could even ask them if you want to go that far, but I don't think we would. So that's the thing that this has turned around to me. I thought we were just evaluating one book, you know.
It's two ways. Your way is to be proactive as a committee, but still, someone's gonna challenge a book that's in our shelves, and then you need a reconsideration committee at that point. So do you be proactive in that way and have a committee established ahead of time, or do you scramble and put it together when the challenge comes?
Yeah, I agree with what you're
Either
saying.
way,
This,
or it's
that's
one
a
committee.
mammoth undertaking that you're talking about, which is going to take a lot of time, input, and effort. I think the easiest thing right now is to set up a mechanism. If a parent calls up Kyle and says, I don't like this book, whether it's a textbook or this log book in the library or something like that, it should be taken out, okay? And I think we should have a system set up that where Kyle says, okay, here's our mechanism, and this is what you do. And
We need a protocol
for protocol of what we pull in right now. The other thing is a long-range project if you want to delve into it. I mean that's where there's all this stuff going on, but right now I think the immediate thing is if we have a complaint, do we have a process worked out of who we call together to review it and make a decision? And I think the person who
There is a policy, it's already in our
So as a
policy
parent,
handbook.
is the complaining parent a member of that
Yes,
committee?
all of it, pardon?
Is the complaining parent a member of that decision person?
No.
No, see, that's what we heard back at.
You can't have the person bringing the objection to be on the committee.
Why not? They should be able to.
You have to have an objective committee
Right.
remote from the person who
Okay.
is.
Well, or there's this concept that some people forgot about is
I mean,
compromise.
it's a separation.
Allow them to share their opinion.
Right, bring them in and let them discuss it.
Real smart
Right.
people actually compromise, it happens. I've seen it.
All right.
They certainly would have that opportunity.
Yes, right.
Right? You have that process already.
Right, and it's all in the policy handbook already.
Yes, so, I mean,
Well, I do think there's two things, and one is a longer term, is we have a way to respond, and it's already in policy, thank you for saying that, we should all do
Okay,
that.
so
And the other one is, do we have a bigger issue long term?
But we don't have a committee.
You don't have a selection committee, and
but we have a process.
Reconsideration.
That's what we need, is
We
the
don't.
committee.
I think we should see.
all
the
right,
process.
so
Where
we
did this
need
come
to,
from?
we need to
it came from school board.
schools, the WASB went to a
Session, they went to a
session
session on it.
on a school.
In January.
Actually, the person bringing the complaint can bring another person with them.
10 or 15.
All right, so there's two ways to go. Is it we establish a book selection committee that reacts? Or do we have a book selection committee that reacts but also reviews new titles? Need a motion on something.
May I recommend we focus on the committee first? Because the other thing, I think there's some discussion with our current library and how you currently select books, and maybe there's a future briefing and said, this is how I do this, this is what I consider, these are my inputs. It may be awesome. I'm just unfamiliar with it.
You're saying, Dave, a reconsideration committee?
No, well, what I'm saying is she lumped the two together, and I'm trying to say a cleaner motion would be, does someone want to set up a selection committee for reconsideration? This is new vocabulary, right? It's a dictionary, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? Just like equity, what does it really mean? So we want to set up a committee to review books when there's a complaint.
When there's
Right.
what?
That's the committee we're talking about.
The reconsideration.
If that's the right title, sure.
I would think we would establish a chairperson, and then that chairperson would be in charge of selecting the committee based on the objection. And a chairperson, to me, would be an obvious choice, would be the person who is in charge of.
The problem is,
She's the one who
no,
purchased the books.
she's the person
She's the one who selected the books.
Right, good question.
So then you're asking her.
Sure, her
to
criteria is
review-
good.
Well, to handle the complaint.
No, I
So
don't
she's the one who, okay,
so the
so
complaints about.
you're putting her in a predicament there though.
Yeah.
Because she said, yeah, I picked these 300 books she picked, and then one parent says, hey, that book I don't like, and they're challenging it, and you say, okay, it's gonna go to the committee, and the chairperson is the person who's selected to have that book in.
Well, you have to deal with it on a professional basis. I mean, you can't deal with it on an emotional basis.
Right.
Who else would be the chairman of, let's say a complaint came to Brian Paul about something that's being done in the tech ed.
Are you talking about a textbook?
Okay, whatever. I mean.
Well, it's a book. Let's stay focused. We're talking about a book review.
Logically put in charge of handling that complaint. You certainly wouldn't put the English teacher in charge of
No,
complaint.
the principal will be in charge of it. If there's a question in industrial arts, it goes to the principal, and he'd delve into
I
it.
put the principal in charge of it.
All right.
And I
It's a content.
But I would certainly want the media person.
Dick, for your, I'll tell you this, Dick, in all the U.S. military, and I had to do it myself, whenever there's a raised complaint, you go one level up. So you would not put her in, because not that she's done anything wrong. So why make her defend herself? You would not do that. That is
It's
not
not
the
that
right
position to put her in.
She picked the book
She could
already
be,
once.
yeah.
So she gotta be the.
She could be brought in as an expert or something.
Is that, do you want to make that motion, Dave?
You said this was an
I'm not sure I'm there somewhere.
And we don't have to make a decision.
Or if you want to think, we can table this and bring it back another
Why
time.
don't you,
You want to
can
think
you
about it a
and
little
your
bit?
principals, understanding the essence of this, come back in a month with the proposed protocol?
At our next admin team meeting we'll have Mrs. Bauer to join us, and we'll sit down and talk. Well, we'll have it as a topic, at least we'll report it back out.
Great. Okay. Administering our,
Am I allowed to say anything? I don't know.
well, you're a book person, we'll let you go.
If they recognize, not technically.
Well, no,
yes.
I just want to point out that Bridget spent a lot of time putting together, and I'm here in support because I helped her edit it and like draft it and everything, because I worked in the law before I became a teacher, and I wanted to make sure that it was, we have a responsibility as a public school to act in loco parentis, not in solo parentis, not in total parentis, but in loco parentis.
And we're not
Dictionary.
questioning any level of
Right.
professionalism. We're trying to get ahead of the curve should
Right.
someone come with a
Exactly.
complaint.
And
Yep,
safety grief.
but what I'm saying is, she put this together and sent it out to all of the parents and gave the parents the option of literally having the power to veto any single book that their kids might check out from the library
Yep.
that
And you know
their
what?
family objected to.
Respectfully,
zero
the
complaints.
parents looked at it and said, yeah, let them check it out. But when the book comes home, somebody's going to see it and say, I've got a problem with this. So
Well,
we're
because-
not questioning any level of
Do we
professionalism.
actually believe
We're trying to get ahead of the curve.
2% of all those parents have any idea what those books are? I mean, so we can throw the law terms, that's fine, I get that, and there's smart people like you that do that, but we have taxpayers in reality that we have people that will come up and say, why is this book here? And some of us will look at the book and you're like, we're teaching this? I mean, why would we teach that? Because it's, I'm sure your books are awesome, but there are books out there that completely rewrite history, is my understanding, and I've never read that book, but that's what they say. Is that true? I don't know.
Admin team will meet with us hours after spring break, and we'll come back to April 14th.
Okay.
All right.
Administering Narcan.
This is a request from last month.
Mr. War, administering Narcan.
Okay, Narcan, I need some right now. I don't have it. Okay, I don't need it. All right, I brought this up many times. It continues on, as we know, there's 100 and some odd thousand people die from this now, from fentanyl every year. It's now appearing in candy. It's coming across the border. It's the cartels and whoever makes this stuff actually have presses now which can grind this stuff out, looking just like the pill that you get from the druggist, with the same initials on it, the same color of any other type of drug. It's a huge problem. It hasn't come here yet, and I keep talking about it because I don't want it to come here, but if it comes here, we need to be prepared. In the same way that we have sprinkler systems and locks on our doors and fire extinguishers, all that, for inevitability, if that ever happens, we can take care of it. The problem with, and I'm focusing primarily on fentanyl, it's appearing in candy, it's being passed, it hasn't come here, but it will come here. And we don't want it to have a bad thing occur if it does. We want to be prepared. You have like 25 minutes at the most, sometimes less, depending upon how long it takes before somebody realizes that Johnny is not acting right. Or he falls, passes out in the bathroom, and they find him 20 minutes after he's passed out and hasn't shown up in class or out in the field and all that stuff. So what I'm suggesting is what I've read so far, some schools, I was going to show you videos here where a school out in Virginia actually had things on the wall. You break the glass and the Narcan is inside and all over the place. In Wisconsin, the state board, or whoever it is, has authorized that we can teach all the way down to the faculty level how to react to these dangerous situations. Again, I look at it as a school our size and what we're trying to do of lure kids from other districts here. You can only need one bad case and that would just blow it all apart. All right, and you'd be spending all your time defending how you got fentanyl into the school. Now, some kid brought a gumdrop that looks like a gumdrop and passed it around.
A couple things just for discussion. Can you answer that? You would say, so when you have that Narcan in your school, Narcan,
It's
the
a
risk
nasal
to
spray.
other people, there's no risk to other people.
No.
If somebody got their hands on Narcan,
They can take it.
So then the other thing,
I checked that out with the local pediatrician.
awesome, and that this, and then, so when we put them in these fire things around.
I'm not recommending that.
Well, maybe I am.
Okay.
They're $17.
Right.
Let's put a cost on this, right? So the little red thing in your video, you can buy it for $17. And there's a nicer one that I would recommend for $56, right? So what you're saying is the risk to our school is low. The cost would be very low. So we would need some smart people to say, how many do you need? It's like would our EMS team come in and recommend you need 3 in every hallway and 2 out by the locker gym, right? So then we buy them, but the cost, so what I'm going after is let's get a cost to the school. Because if the cost is $2,000 a year because you gotta buy them, and then one day it's gonna get broken.
And then certainly expire, but I don't know how long.
And then looking at that, so actually, from our earlier discussion, I think it's not a bad idea.
Okay, but backtracking from that, okay? I was gonna recommend, and then one of my reading is, a Narcan program should be under the control of the school nurse, okay? And she should probably sit down with our medical advisor, who I think is Dr. Johnson.
And remember, it's not our school nurse, we purchase our services at Door County Medical Center. She's not a school employee,
I thought she was.
she's never been.
I thought she left there and bought it.
No.
Oh, that was the-
Oh, that's the physical therapist.
No, OT.
Okay, okay. But anyway, don't worry about that there, Tate. So they, and
Someone's
let,
got to worry about it.
yeah, but according to the state, what I read, according to the state school board or something, they recommend that this type of program be under the offices, under control of the school nurse. Okay? And she begins to develop it and would come. So I'm saying we should sit down, I'd be happy to sit down with school nurse and begin putting together a program of what we should do with Narcan, and then would eventually come back here with the proposal, how much we should have, where it should be located, and who should be taught to administer it. Currently, we have it in 2 locations, in the nurse's office and in
School resource office.
okay. So if they're here, that's fine. If they're not here, I don't know what to do. You know, they should be readily, according to a doctor I talked to, it should be readily available in a place that is open all the time if the school's open. When the school's not open, then, okay. So I don't know if those offices are open when there's a basketball game going on upstairs. I mean, that's another place you could probably.
Well, the video, put them in a hallway.
I know.
There's no risk if someone steals
Okay,
it.
you're
right?
taking it to another step.
Why not?
I'm
You're
trying to take it to a logical.
It's not $10 million.
I know. I mean, if you want to recommend that, I'd go along with you. I mean, I believe that's the ultimate way.
Why
But
don't
I'd
you
rather
have
have
a committee first?
and I think you need, if you're going to have the boxes up, you need to then open it up. Which faculty would like to be taught on how to administer this?
I've got on board to support you, now you're saying no, so whatever.
Well,
I think it's a good idea, so whatever, yeah, so we're gonna, someone should look at it.
What if we establish a committee to discuss the availability of Narcan in the school,
Our Narcan program for this building.
Narcan program?
And bring back a
Narcan
proposal.
program committee.
I don't know, we need a committee, just.
Well,
I think you need to have
he said
buy-in.
he wanted to talk to the school nurse about it.
So my only, like, for the record, it is in Door County, I got a flyer today, so according to the mail,
Me too.
fentanyl's in Door County right now.
Is it?
It is.
So we should have.
And what we're saying, it's a safety precaution. We didn't have to get a committee to get fire sprinklers put in.
That
We
was-
just went to the expert and said, what,
Well, no, that's required by law.
well, that's where we're getting to. So
We
my
got
only,
it.
call the hospital and say, who's right here? So if you want a committee, we'll establish it.
There's no standardized program right now for Narcan.
If you remember the night.
Well, my understanding, medically, there's no risk, so the risk to us is way
So
lower.
we need to develop from professional people in a committee to establish.
We'll make a recommendation.
Okay, I'll recommend that we, and I'll be happy to chair it, and I'll work with the school nurse, and coming back here like in 60 days with the Narcan program for this recommendation. All right.
I'll second it.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we'll look for some motions on these resignations. Start with Mrs. Dowling. Staff interventions.
I would move to approve the resignation of Emily Stousen, math interventionist, June 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Would you want to comment on that?
No, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next one, Ron Frank.
Move to approve the resignation of Ron Frank from the middle school track and field coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Dale Fuller.
Move to approve the resignation of Dale Fuller, middle school boys basketball.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then a motion to approve the revision of those numerous policies.
You want to see the Go approve them all.
I think we can approve
Yeah,
them all at
pick the
once.
way you-
I'll make a motion that we approve of the policies that are reviewed by the policy committee.
Second.
Your agenda.
Questions or discussion on any of those? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That would conclude our regular business, so I'll look for a motion for the board to convene to executive session.
I'll make a motion to convene the executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote, Sue?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried at 8:49 PM. Who made the motion?
You're going to open, I did.
We are on now.
Seconded that?
I think I did.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the preliminary notice of non-renewal, a staff non-renewal?
I would move to approve the preliminary non-renewal of,
We don't have
Second.
questions or discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then the motion on compensation.
Move to approve compensation for the 23-24 school year to include $2,500 per teacher, 3.5% for administrators, 4% for support staff.
Second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we have this, the grid for 4K and 5K. You want us to approve this?
That'd be nice.
The grid.
I'll make a
Sets out staffing.
motion to approve the staffing 23-24 teacher aid grid for the 4K, 5K as presented.
Second.
Questions or discussions? Do we just want to make that 23-24, or is that the grid? The motion says 23-24,
Property control.
or is it just?
For the school, I think.
If that's the motion, that's only for next year. If we want to practice forever, then
We have to bring it back.
they have to have amendment or something, yeah, or bring it back next year.
Kind of revamp it then?
Would you like to
Yeah. We're going to change it, but I'd rather.
amend your motion?
I'll amend my motion to say, to remove 23-24.
I agree. As a second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Our next regular meeting is April 19th. Mr. Licky will let us know in the interim if we need a special meeting for anything. And if there's no other business, something.
One of the businesses is for the election in April, and so we have to canvass the votes. April 10th in the morning would be best. A couple people there to canvass the votes. Now it's, who's up?
Jeff and Jerry.
So they should not be members of that canvassing.
I can come.
Okay.
There's a good chance April 10th I'm out of town.
All right.
If I'm in town, I will be here, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be here.
That's not clear.
The 10th
Yep.
in the morning?
Yes, the morning of the 10th. That Friday's Good
Yeah,
Friday,
good.
and that's webinars on Monday, so.
I could do it late morning, like 11.
I'd like it earlier because Chris Moe has a webinar at 1 and she's got to eat lunch before that. I want to make sure we get it done. If these two make it, that's good. The two's good.
Okay.
How many days after the actual election do you have to canvass?
She has on the notes here, you have to do between the 7th and the 10th.
Okay, this election is on the 4th?
4th, yeah, but then Good Friday is that Friday.
No, that shouldn't affect. So
Well, it affects us being in the office to actually do it. We're closed on that day.
5 to 6 days.
So the 10th 10th at 10?
Or 10 and 10.
You have enough then?
Yeah, we'll be all right
Okay.
then,
Anything else?
yeah. That's it.
No? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 10:26 p.m.